Shooter Bridge subject number 3 was the Jacksonville, Florida shooting retaliation for the Montgomery, Alabama fight. That should be topic number 3. This came with a link. I believe it's an article from on Yahoo. So the title says a white man fatally shoots 3 black people at a Florida store in a hate crime, then kills himself. A masked white man fatally shot 3 black people inside a Jacksonville, Florida Dollar General store in a predominantly African American neighborhood on Saturday, in an attack where he used a gun painted with a swastika. Officials said the shooter, who had also posted racist writings, then killed himself. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters told a news conference that the attack that left 2 men and 1 woman dead was definitely, quote unquote, racially motivated. He hated black people, Waters said after reviewing the man's writings, which were sent to federal law enforcement officials and at least one media outlet shortly before the attack. He added that the gunman acted alone, and there is absolutely no evidence the shooter is part of any larger group. I found that a suspect thing to say, but that's just me. To continue, Waters said the shooter, who was in his 20s, used a Glock handgun and an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, with at least one of them painted with a swastika. He was wearing a bullet-resistant vest. He said the shooter had once been involved in a 2016 domestic violence incident and was once involuntarily committed to a mental hospital for examination. He did not provide further details on those incidents. Officials didn't immediately release the names of the victims or the shooter. The sheriff said the gunman had left behind in his writings evidence that leads investigators to believe that he committed the shooting because it was the 5th anniversary of when another gunman opened fire during a video game tournament in Jacksonville, killing 2 people before fatally shooting himself. The shooting happened just before 2 p.m. at a Dollar General, about 3/4 of a mile from Edward Waters University, a small, historically black university. In a statement, the university said that shortly before the shooting, one of its security officers saw the man at the school's library and asked him to identify himself. When he refused, he was asked to leave. The man returned to his car. Sheriff Waters said the man was spotted putting on his vest and mask before leaving. He said it's unknown if he had originally planned to attack the school. I can't tell you, this is a quote, I can't tell you what his mindset was while he was there, but he did go there, the sheriff said. Edward Waters students were locked down in their dorms for several hours after the shooting. No students or faculty are believed involved, the school said. The shooter had driven to Jacksonville from neighboring Clay County, where he lived with his parents. No surprise. The sheriff said that house was being searched late Saturday. Shortly before the attack, the shooter sent his father a text message telling him to check his computer. The father found the writings and the family notified 911, but the shooting had already begun. This is a day in Jacksonville's history. There's no place for hate in this community, the sheriff said. I'm sickened by this cowardly shooter's personal ideology. He said the investigation will continue. The FBI was helping the sheriff's office and said it had opened a hate crime investigation. Major Donna Deegan said she is, quote unquote, heartbroken. She said, this is a community that has suffered again and again. So many times this is where we end up. This is something that should not and must not continue to happen in our community. Governor Ron DeSantis, after speaking by phone with the sheriff, called the shooter a quote-unquote scumbag and denounced his racist motivation. I guess it takes one to know one. This guy killed himself rather than face the music and accept responsibility for his actions. He took the coward's way out, said DeSantis, who was in Iowa campaigning for the Republican presidential nomination. Both President Joe Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland were briefed on the shooting, officials said. Dollar General's corporate office said in a statement that the company was supporting its Jacksonville employees, quote, as we work closely with law enforcement. Virginia Bradford lives in the neighborhood of modest brick and cinder block houses near the store. She frequently stops at the Dollar General and said she meant to go there Saturday for detergent and bleach, but got sidetracked by other plans. That's my store, Bradford told reporters, looking past patrol cars with flashing lights blocking the street to the store a block away. I know everyone in the store. It's sad. Unsettled by the racist killings, Bradford, who is black, says she doubts she'll ever go back. Quote, I won't even send my kids up there anymore. My nerves are bad. I feel it for her. Penny Jones, how long is this on her? Penny Jones told the Associated Press in a phone interview that she worked at the store located a few blocks away from her home until a few months ago. Quote, I'm just waiting to hear about my coworkers that I used to work with, she said. I don't know if it's safe to move about that neighborhood. Jones added that she was feeling awkward and scared. Rudolph Missick, a national board member of the Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network, was in Jacksonville on Saturday when the shooting occurred. As it began to unfold and I began to see the truth of it, my heart ached on several levels, said Missick, or McKissick, who is a Baptist bishop and senior pastor of the Bethel Church in Jacksonville. The neighborhood of the shooting is known as Newton. It's a black neighborhood. And what we don't want is for it to be painted in some kind of light that it is filled with plight, violence, and decadence, McKissick said. The shooting took place within hours of the conclusion of a commemorative march on Washington in the nation's capital, where organizers drew attention to the growing threat of hate-motivated violence against people of color. Reached by the Associated Press on Saturday evening, march attendee and Jacksonville native Marsha Dean Phelps said learning of the shooting was a death blow. It hurts, Phelps said by phone while on a charter bus home from Washington. Many fellow bus riders began hearing about the deadly shooting in their community just before they all boarded to make the long journey back, she said. It's a neighborhood, a black community that we come out of, said Phelps, 79, who is black. It's where our college is, Edward Waters University. You know what? Okay, it's a few more paragraphs. So,
You can give it a break. You can give it a break. We get the gist.
All right, good. With that said, let me hear from Buana first on this one. Buana, what say?
Yeah, it seems like the white supremacist groups, the militia groups in the United States, have decided to take a different tact in terms of dealing with racial issues in America. They seem to take the tact of the terrorists, where you have these lone wolves who somehow they mentally deranged and they go into soft targeted areas and stage these kinds of shootings. And I'm asking, if he is crazy or deranged, why go at soft targets? Why choose schools? Why choose churches? Why choose grocery stores where people are not necessarily armed? Every Saturday night, Friday night, brothers is be hanging out where they go to the clubs, they hang out on the street corners, they congregate. If you are so hateful in your mind, right? Why don't just go down to them areas where them brothers them congregating on street corners and in front of certain areas? Go around there. Why? Why? Because they believe that these brothers gonna shoot back. It's such a cowardly act, but it's a reasoned one. Because you crazy when it's time for you to be crazy, but you ain't crazy enough to engage people who have the ability to shoot back and protect themselves. Ain't that strange and funny? That's so strange and funny. But these are the tactics that these people resort to. It's interesting though when I hear about these kinds of incidences because the brother who I can't remember his name, something Gavin, when he decided to go against the power structure in America, something Gavin, he is banging it out with the police officers. The other brother from Louisiana, Sarah something, Cosmo something, he was fighting against police officers when he stayed something. Gun to gun, man to man, arm to arm. The only person who I could remember in a recent past who had done something like that with a black face was Colin Ferguson. When he pulled up in a train and was shooting unarmed people. But these kinds of things for me it's just so it's very cowardly. You're going and attacking the most vulnerable people, and you're afraid to go against people who have the ability to fight back or even throw a blow. But I say to my black brothers and sisters in the United States to exercise your Second Amendment, even if it's at a grocery store or even if it's at a church ceremony, because they don't frisk in church. Unfortunately, all could come, all in one could come to these vulnerable places, so they'll let anyone in there. I think there was a guy who had an intention of doing a church shooting, but was stopped because the church was too. The pastor said the church was at its capacity, so they wasn't letting people inside. So he left there, and he pulled a gun on someone else, another group of black folks, but they would have permitted him in without frisking him, without searching him, just a random hillbilly. And I'm thinking to myself, at this time and point in American history, my brothers and sisters should have their tentacles up, their feelers up. When people who don't come from your community just putting themselves in your church, they don't want to pray with you. They don't want to shop with you. They don't want to grow with you. They have already then decided and committed to a particular act. So it's not about equality for them. It's not about inclusion for them. So my thing is, you must protect yourself at all costs. You must protect yourself at all costs, even if you have to have the Bible in one hand and the gun in another. You know what I mean? Because the reality is, yes, Jesus could take you away to your sweet by and by, but I feel like, you have this life, you want to live it too, and you have a right to live this existence too. So even if I have to defend myself in a church, and blast some white supremacist head off, right in front of the congregation, to defend myself, I must do that. So if I have to take a gun to church, there's something I got to do. So I think that the American citizens who have a right to carry arms in all these so-called states, they should do so. I'll stop there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Let's welcome in Brother Bakari this week. Brother Bakari, how are you this week?
What's going on? How you doing?
Good.
I'm good. No, I don't think this is retaliation for what happened in Montgomery. Shit, this is something they've been doing. I don't think it's any retaliation. I don't think this had anything to do with. I don't think it had anything to do with Montgomery, but they did what they always do. They choose soft targets. That's why I did a whole show one time about understanding and recognizing threats, which is something we don't do very well when it comes to dealing with these people. But the answer said we should look into the. Somebody said we should look into the Turner diaries. I don't know what they are, but no, I'm not. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't think it has anything to do with Montgomery, Alabama. I just think it is something they have been doing, and they have been able to get away with it. Mate.
Appreciate that, Brother Bakari. You guys make sure tune in to Brother Bakari's show on Sunday, Mind Our Black Business. On Friday nights, Smoke One with Brother Bakari on a Friday night. KW7 said, I have a feeling that the Jacksonville shooter is linked to the Buffalo shooter. We should look into the Turner Diaries. If I remember correctly, the Turner Diaries is a fictional story, but they say it's instructional to white folks, to white nationalists in particular, about guerrilla warfare, etc. Trigger Happy 262 says white supremacist shooters are connected through the internet. Ketter says they both wanted to trigger a race war. Interesting. Trigger Happy 262 says they aren't really lone wolves. They are cell terrorists interconnected by the internet and inspired by other shooters. I appreciate that comment. With that said, let me hear from Only what say you to everything you've heard?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brother Bakari that this was not. It was obviously not, related to uh, the squabble. I mean, Grant. I mean, I'm not gonna say I know what this guy was thinking, but clearly he was thinking to celebrate a different, as they say, cowardly act that happened 5 years earlier. What I want to say is this, though. 3 black people lost their lives. And that's a terrible thing. To just lose your life so meaninglessly, uh, because some guy wanted to, I guess, celebrate something that shouldn't even be celebrated. Uh, and the other part of it is that that hatred. I want to say, because like I said, I'm in Africa right now. You don't experience that hatred. Like, you do not experience that. Oh, I hate you because you're black. Um, I mean, if you go looking for it, maybe you could find it, right? But generally speaking, like, nobody hates you because you're black. Uh, the worst I've experienced maybe is that people want money from me. You know what I mean? Like, people want to charge me 50 cents more for whatever it is, Um, and it's just 50 cents, obviously, by principle, it's like, oh no, why would you charge you 50 cents more? But they're like, hey, you can afford 50 cents more. And even when I'm saying it, people, you guys are hearing it like, wait, just 50 cents? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, they know you can afford 50 more cents. But like, you get away from this hatred. Like, I feel really good. And I think that's another part of it. Really, I did want to start focusing on the black people who were hated, the black people who lost their lives meaninglessly. Just going to shop for cheap things, something that we all, occasionally do. Obviously not Brother Bakari, because Brother Bakari don't shop white, but but if you find yourself shopping white, you might go to a Dollar General, I guess, right? But the thing about America too is that it really gets you deranged. Like, I could even say, for me personally, like, I could have been depressed. I have no idea. Um, but like, I knew this white guy. Like, I only know one white guy really, and for the longest while, like, I kind of low key espionage, spying on the dude. But basically, he had trouble finding a woman, and finally he did get a woman, and he's in Europe, obviously. So he's much better. But like, there's a lot of dudes who cannot find women. Like, the Western way of life is really hard, not just on us as black people, but on white folk too, right? Uh, and like Koku was saying, the dude's living with his parents type stuff. And I mean, he's still young, so it's not the worst thing to live with your parents. But um, some dudes are hopeless. Some dudes, they're not getting no love, they're not getting no attention. Like what I could say is, coming to Africa, like, you get that love, you get that attention, like, you get good, real emotions, good, healthy life, healthy living, joyful living. This dude would not do this. This white boy would not do this if he had a joyful living. But it's harder in the West. Now, I'm not saying that, you can't find it in the West, but even if you tie back to the last subject of these dudes just pouring alcohol, just wasting alcohol, how happy are they? Like what is their psychological profile? And that's what's happening with these white guys might lash out and shoot people, but then you have these black men who are just standing around flexing on other black men. Probably, hopefully, I'm hoping, because they want to inspire women. But like, even that, long story short, because long story short, yeah, it's there is like all I can say to our people is, get out of there, get out of being hated, Get out of the psychological turmoil that is the West. If you don't want to, that's fine. But I'm telling you, there's just so much more to life than being hated by somebody and also being depressed. And I'll leave it at that.
I'll tell you the truth on it. I could have listened to you talk about that shit for a little bit longer, because just today, some shit hit me from left field today. And I'm like, damn, boy, like, there's always something. In this fucking place, there's always something. And usually there's always something, in my experience, is usually something to do with money and resources and stuff like that. You're just stretched thin. And there's always something else around the corner. And like, hearing you talk about that just now was kind of refreshing. I think those are the conversations we have to have a bit more, to be honest. But anyway, Carl, you heard everything everyone had to say. What say you? Sorry, Black Steel.
That's all right. Just give away my secret identity. Why don't you?
I know, right?
Anyway, so my father's family is from Jacksonville. This Dollar General store is actually right down the street from my grandmother's house, where she used to live, where she passed. So I know this area. Hadn't been there in a while, but I know this area. So something they said in the article, they mentioned about a shooting about 5 years ago at the mall in Jacksonville. They were having a video game tournament, and this white boy was losing. He killed the black boy and killed another person. Then he killed himself. And this also was the anniversary of the March on Washington. These racists, they like to plan things around events such as commemorations of violence or anything. And my thinking is that he had already planned this, but what happened in Alabama probably pushed him over the edge. And that's when he really started to do this, because you can't let these niggas get too uppity. Is probably what his thinking was. But I just want to say that also the article really went in on saying that this cracker was a lone wolf. He's not connected to anybody else. And we all understand that these white supremacists, they radicalize each other. So they don't really want to aim at the reality that racism is as American as apple pie in baseball. They don't ever they want to point, oh, this person is crazy, this person is sane, like what Tupac said, he's sane as a motherfucker. So it's not anything they want to try to push it away from the reality that this person is just acting out the institutional violence against black people that has been there since America was a part of Great Britain. All right, before the 13 colonies and so on and so forth. This behavior, this attitude is a part of this country. So they want to make it sound, oh, he's just a lone wolf. He's just acting on his own. He's been Baker acted. He's crazy. No, he's not crazy. He knew exactly what he was doing. Just like the one in Buffalo knew exactly what he was doing. And there was a reference made to the Turner Diaries, which is like a white supremacist Bible almost. It talks about like a future, almost like a post-apocalyptic reality in which white people engage in what they call a racial holy war to cleanse the earth of the mud races. And many of these white supremacists, you know what? I don't like to use the term white supremacists because they're not supreme. The ability to project violence against another group of people does not make you supreme. It makes you a psychopath. So let me say this. These white psychopaths, these sociopaths, they take lessons from this book as a way to plan for their racial holy war against black people, against anybody they deem to be inferior. Of course, top of their list, black people. No, top of their list, Jews. Then right behind the Jews, black people. So their whole goal is to annihilate us because in their mind, they believe in what they call white genocide, which is a completely ridiculous term. So they believe that white people are being killed off and, we're trying to halt their birth rate. So the only way they can compete is to kill us. The solution to their problem is always to kill other people because they're psychopaths. There's nothing supreme about them. But I do understand that they work together, they network with each other, they have social media, 4chan, Stormfront, all these other sites where they can share tactics. They can read these guys, these psychopaths manifestos, what they believed in. So it's definitely not a one-off. The next day, the governor, piece of trash that he is, shows up to the meeting. They booed him. To the one mammy told him to be quiet. We had Bunny Ruckus told him to be quiet and respect the governor. There's nothing to respect because DeSantis has created this atmosphere. It's always been a part of America. This be true, but he has put the gas on this fire, so to speak. So there were some these white psychopaths went to Walt Disney World. They were waving swastikas and they were saying DeSantis country. She never denounced them. Another situation where he has made it legal to where if someone is protesting, you can hit them with your car and not face any civil penalties. He has worked hard with the education board to eliminate Black history in schools, basically saying that Black people gained some skills from slavery that allowed them to benefit. So, this is an all-out attack on Black life, not just in America, but particularly in the state of Florida, which is why the NAACP, for whatever good they're from, they put out a travel advisory, and I believe this was part of the reason because the government policies and programs in this state are hostile to Black life. We have to get organized, we have to be armed, and we have to be vigilant. We're not in a position where we can take our eye off the ball, feel comfortable, or feel safe. We are at war with this system. So if that means we all have to be armed at every time, it's an unfortunate reality. There's no other solution. We have to fight. We have to organize for our very survival. And I'll leave that there. Thank you, Coco.
No, absolutely. I like what you said at the end there. Juana said it earlier too. It's time to get armed, man. One of the things I'm learning now in the so-called blue states in America, and especially these big city parts of America, where it seems like they don't want folks to have guns and stuff. They do put up some kind of barriers to entry, so to speak, some deterrence. But what I'm learning in this process is still apply. Still, and if you have to work with some folks who have a track record of getting people their Second Amendment rights, so to speak, go ahead and plunk down a couple of hundred it costs to do it. But it's doable. It's doable. It's not. There was a time where I thought it wasn't doable. Then with some research, I learned that it is doable, but they put these little deterrents up there like your application fee won't be refunded if you're denied. And, who wants to lose hundreds of dollars and stuff? So, but from what I'm learning from this, what do you call them again? Firearm club, is typically you're going to get through. So that fear of they probably won't let me get it, and put that aside, plunk down your money confidently, join you a firearm club where a Black one at that, and be knowledgeable and be ready to protect yourself. Now, here's the thing that no one ever says. Listen, if a guy comes out the blue, and this is kind of what Oni was pointing out, you're going about your life, and some dude just out the blue starts opening fire. You might get killed. That it's a surprise attack. That's just what it is. But if you didn't get killed, you have a chance to stop that person from causing more harm. And that's what I want our people to understand, man. You want to be able to stop the bleeding, so to speak. It's time for us to get armed and stuff. Does anyone else want to add any last words to this prompt?
Yeah, let me say
Yes.
right.
Go ahead, Brother Bakari.
That is something I've been telling folks. That is something I tell folks all the time. You need to prepare. See, we can talk about how they come and how they act and how they shoot and kill and do all that. We can even laugh at the Christians for praying, talk about ain't nobody fighting back. But I always say, look at yourself and see what we're doing. And we ain't doing that. I've been telling people that for years. Like me, I'm not part of I'm not part of either one of the organizations. I'm not part of no NRA, and I'm not part of the black one either. Not that I have a problem with being part of the black one. I created my own thing, and I go train. Me personally, I wouldn't live nowhere where I can't have a gun. I have my gun on me at all times. And I also did a show on talking about understanding and recognizing a threat. But we're so gullible, or naive. The only threat that we normally see is us. So, I know the Christians are going to wait and pray, and a lot of them, not all. So I'm going to stop saying the Christians, the ones they going to show that you're going to see on TV. Because I have way more Christian friends with guns and bullets and suited and booted and trained than non-Christian friends. Way more Muslim friends that's suited and booted and trained than non-religious people. So I'm gonna just stop saying Christians. It's just the ones they want you to see on TV. And then what we do is we label them and say, that's how the Christians are. And that's not how Christians are. That's how those people they showed on TV are. And we play, and I'm not going to get back into how we have accepted we are nothing, but we play into their hands all the time. They want us to see that. So the people that say they want to do something, so we can start saying, no, I don't want to deal with them. This is all they do. But if we don't deal with our people and try to build something, because me and my crew and the people I deal with, in all honesty, if it ain't more of us and some go down, we will be okay. We will be able to save and protect ourselves for a minute. But I'm just being honest. I ain't trying to save nobody that don't want to fight with me. And I've let people know that, no, do not come around me. If something happened, I'm going to be the first one to shoot at you and make you go the other way. Because I've been telling people this for years. I stand on the streets and tell people this. I stand out in front of the stores. But we're so nonchalant where we see the only problem we ever see is us until something like this happened. And then we want to dissect it. The only dissecting that needs to be done is us. And we should be asking, why don't we come together as a group of people and stop arguing so we can at least defend ourselves, so we can at least feed ourselves? Because it's about to get worse with the COVID, with everything. And for me, I think we should talk preparing. Because when it comes to being ready, majority of Black people ain't ready. How many people right now, if they say we're going to do a shutdown because of the new strain of COVID, can feed themselves? How many people right now got at least 1,000 bullets per gun that they have? How many of us have the paper towel and toilet paper and all that stuff that we need? See, when it happened, it's too late to dissect it. I've been trying to get people to dissect it for years so we can come together and do it. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. There's another reason I say the Black woman is God, because way more of them have guns and suited and booted than Black men. And on that, and that's who, that's who you see in the range. That's who you see out training more when it comes to Black people, is Black women. And on that, I yield the mic.
I appreciate that, Bakari. Bonnie, want to add something? Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, let me say this. You notice how the shooter didn't stop to ask whether the person was from another country or not. He just saw a bunch of black faces, and his goal was to eradicate all the black faces that he see. So it didn't matter the fact that one of these people was a black immigrant from somewhere else. He put everybody in the same category and categorized them as one big Negro. So I gonna get rid of the threat, and that's what he decided to do. In terms of what Brother Bakari was saying, now we don't want to work with one another, and it seems like we have an embedded dislike for one another. And it's my goal, it's our goal collectively to try to disabuse ourselves with that notion, because that notion is embedded inside the mind of black people for some strange reason. Listen, I listened to an interview by a gentleman named Larry Elder. He was on this show called the Breakfast Club, I think. And he said that the cause of death among black men from, I think that the age was 14 to 44, was homicide, not by other people, but by each other. Now, if that statistic is true, I don't know if it is or not. That statistic, this is a key reference. He said he got it from a governmental source. I don't know if that's true or not. But if it is, that's telling me that we can't come to we can't reason with one another. We don't particularly care for one another. We are completely emotive when it comes to us dealing with one another. And it goes to almost the level of murder. You know what I mean? If I hear something I don't particularly care for from another black individual who look just like me, it's not that I gonna excuse his behavior. It's not that I gonna allow him the grace that I would allow other communities. But I would let it get to a point to where I would even murder him. Number one cause of death among black men in that particular age range. So I say, if that is the case, if that is the case, the solution should be another kind of approach when we dealing with one another. This term of getting together is a good thing. But like I say, what is embedded in the minds of us deeply is this deep self-hatred for one another. So the cure should be a good analysis on where we are and how to cure that problem. And one of which I believe is how we approach one another. Even if it means in the face of sometimes when we, well, let me just leave it. I'll just leave it there, and I'll just leave it. Let's continue. Let's continue.
No, one, I kind of want to build on what you said, because how you said that and you and Bakari both said we see each other as the enemy. That is very deliberate. The white people, the Europeans, have always benefited from divide and conquer, and that's been their number one strategy. So when you're able to keep black people at each other's throats, you're not focused on the enemy outside. So that's a very deliberate, which is why I think that as much as we need weapons, we also need political and ideological training. If you're not going to pick up a book, we don't need you picking up a gun. We don't need black people just to be armed. Being armed is a good start, but we're going to have to uh, get rid of some of the propaganda that we've been infected with. We're going to have to really change our ideology and how we view each other. And this is why they always say it's just a lone wolf, because they don't want black people to really come to the same conclusion that Chancellor Williams came to in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. The white man is our enemy. Now, when that in of itself is a revolutionary idea, because we too often we confine acts of racism to just individuals, and we refuse to see it as a institutional issue. It is the white power, the white dominated system behaving the way it's supposed to behave. And once we come to that realization, and then we start to practice self-defense, then we will become a serious threat. So I agree we need weapons, but we got to kill that little white supremacist that exists within the black population that sees each other as the enemy, to where we don't see white people as a threat. When Dylan Roof went into that church in South Carolina, they sat down and they prayed with him. Then he picked up his gun and murdered 9 of them. So they didn't perceive this white cracker as a threat. Not only did he do this, but Dylan Roof had a white, one of his best friends was black. So these people, they keep their hatred deep within, and then when it comes time to, we don't even recognize it and see these people as a threat. We're going to have to really understand what being in this system, being around these demons, has really done to us psychologically, to where we can't even recognize them as being the monsters that they are.
You know, Coco, you this conversation right here could have lasted your whole show. So I'm gonna say this, and I don't, because I keep it here, but I agree with what Carl just said. But and see, when we understand that's what we got to do, right? And I ain't trying to take it back a couple weeks, but I still got to ask the question: why have we internalized that we ain't nothing? And argue with a black man who said a black woman is God. As a matter of fact, he said just for a certain reason, because he know the reaction he's going to get from black men. So if we know this, why do we allow people to tell you ain't shit, ain't about shit, and argue when a black man defends black women, and then we want to find the worst black woman and make her be the representation of all black women? See, we can say it, but do we really believe that and feel that way and want to get away from it? And are we really built? See, this is my thing. Even when he says something about, and I agree with what he's saying, right? So when he says something about everybody don't need a gun, they should get a book. Well, I was in this man's military. It's something that I learned. I don't think all of them need the book. Some of these folks want to be some of these folks deserve to be infantry on the front line. And that's the only book they need to know, is being on an infantry. And it might sound cruel, but I understand how they were trained and why they were trained. And I understand why they had problems with me while I was in, and some of my friends, they had problems with us because they couldn't do the same thing to us that they did to other people. You couldn't convince me that it's good to give up your life, or it's good what you're doing is a great job for America, when America has never given a damn about me. But if you find them ones who infantry and who field artillery, they don't know nothing else. They don't want to know nothing else, especially infantry. They just ready to go fight and kill. And some of our people, that's what they should be. They just on the front line, and the only training they need, it might sound cruel, and the only training they need is to be ready to fight and to be ready to fight and protect our community until we get things in order. I ain't saying don't teach them nothing, but I'm just saying I've seen how it works.
But Brother Bakari, even if you send out your so-called soldiers to put them on the front line, the dum-dums, the bullet catchers on the front lines, to point and shoot at whoever they say the enemy is, even them go through a process of conditioning in terms of who the enemy is, why he is the enemy, why, and then you would know better than I would, but you have to show that that person is even less than a human being. That is a conditioning process involved for you to even get the dum-dums to get out there and put a gun in their hand to have them point and shoot. And I'm saying that if our dum-dums in our community have not been conditioned in the way we would like them to be, what they could do with the guns, because the enemy is conditioning them, they could turn the guns on you. Because where we don't want to go through that process of training and conditioning and properly educating them to show them who the enemies are, they can say you is the enemy because you are undermining what they believe to be true. What they believe to be true. The white man is supposed to be at a certain level. The black man is supposed to be at a certain level. Now, if you try to undermine that philosophy deep down embedded in their mindset, their goal is going to be to undermine you if you don't condition them correctly. This is why I see. This is why I see you must, even with the people who are, let me say, annoying, even the people who are most adversarial to your perspective and point of view, you must, in trying to win the war, you must sometimes lose the battle, the little small battles. Because eventually the idea is to win the war. You don't win the war. You don't win the war. So all these, like I say, man, I don't want to get off on a tangent. Let's go, man. Let's go.
What did Thomas Sankara say? Thomas Sankara said that a soldier without political and ideological training is a potential criminal. So I understand exactly what you're saying, Buana, that even arming these people is not enough, because if they don't understand, they don't see white people as the enemy. If they're acculturated to see black people as the enemy, just arming them and putting them on the front line is not going to be enough. Look what's happening in Francophone Africa right now. These black people, they always manage to find a traitor. They always manage to find somebody to betray the black movement. That's why firearm training organization is important, but also political ideological training. We have to understand and see that America, the white dominated system, is a threat to black life, not only in America, but globally. This is a white settler colony that is built on slavery and genocide. And until we see this nation for the threat that it truly is, not just to us, but to the world, we're going to see another shooting happen. They just tried to have another shooting not too long ago, and they stopped the dude. There's going to be another mass shooting until we organize. It's not a few one-offs. It's not a few individuals, but we need to have that training. So yeah, Juan, I agree with you.
So I'm gonna show you something, right? Since I believe in pointing the finger at us, right? I believe in pointing the finger at myself. I ain't pointing at him, but so I talk about shit and it bothers people, but I'm gonna still talk about it anyway. So what's the purpose of this on YouTube? The purpose of this on YouTube is to have a conversation about black issues, and hopefully you can get as many black people to listen and black people want to come on board. Is that the purpose of this conversation? Is that the purpose of us being here?
No, the purpose of being here is to educate the minds of the people them correctly. There is so much. Let me finish, man. Let me finish. The purpose is to educate the minds of the people them correctly. Brother Bakari, you've been on YouTube just like I've been on YouTube. You see the vast nonsense that's out here, and your mindset and your heart, I hear it, is to do good. But you are dealing, and I think that you don't get this. This is the problem. This is what me and why I can be contend with each other so much. Sometimes, usually I agree with you 100%. But you don't believe the mind of a typical regular black persons are sick. So you coming from the perspective of well-reasoned arguments. And see, let me finish, man. I let you go. So when you hear comments that is adverse to your ear, it's almost like an insult to you because you don't believe black people are sick. But you say they crazy the last time I talked to you. So I'm saying that sometimes you have to give people the latitude for being properly directed to get to at least the way you are, so you could move them further. This is the problem I have sometimes with my hardliner brothers. But I'll leave it. I'll leave it and let you go. Go ahead, brother.
I got you, and I understand what you're saying. See, the reason I asked that question, we said the same thing. You just said it in a different way. You say to educate. So watch this. I'm going to show you I'm going to show you the white, because I don't use white supremacy, but since y'all use that word, I'm going to show you the white supremacy education that y'all get. And people don't want to hear it, but I got to talk about it. When I say I'm a defender of black people, and when I said the last time we had this, I said, all I got to do is say HBCU. Don't have to mention the school. Just read the chat after I say HBCU. That's all you got to do. Just go read the chat. And you can read the chat and just see what people started saying. All I said was HBCU. Now, me and the one dude, Afro Native World, we talked, and we could, and I understood what he was saying. But yet and still, if I mention something black, We have to focus on the negative. And that's the education that y'all, Carl is another one. When I said HBCU, they have to find the negative. We can't find the positive in us. If I say something positive about a black woman, everybody gonna come at me. We got to find the negative. But somebody can get up here and tell you, y'all ain't shit. You ain't no king, you ain't no queen, and y'all accept that, and don't nobody fight it. So you all are given the same education. When I say I'm a defender of black people, I mean that wholeheartedly in every way. I defend the Christians, because I know all Christians ain't like what they show on TV. But when we allow people to come tell you, you ain't shit, or get mad just because I say HBCU and we search for the negative, but we claim we like history, but I can talk about the history of certain things and certain black people, and black people still search for the negative, I'm going to ask you a question. So what's the difference than the black people that's on YouTube that say they're educating, that allow that type of nonsense to be spread, than the black people who we say just don't know? What's the difference? Or what's the difference in those black people, the one that'll tell you ain't shit, the one that I can just mention something black and black people get offended? What's the difference in those black people and white people? See,
Brother Bakari, I don't think. Listen,
I point the finger at me all the time. Wait a minute, Carl. You got to let me finish.
I thought you was done. My bad. Go ahead. Continue.
Let me finish. See, I point the finger at me all the time. And I have friends that have given me the strong criticism that I say on YouTube. And they've made me sit back and look at me about some of the stuff that I would say about black people. And when they did that, I sat and thought about my daddy, the man I respect more than anybody, my mom and daddy, the people I respect more than anybody that walked the face of this earth. And I thought about some of the things that were said. And when I hear the way black people speak on social media, you would be kicked out of our house. And the only reason my dad wouldn't slap you because you wasn't his child. And I understand why, especially the way black men get mad because I might say a black woman is God. It's almost as if we are jealous of the black woman. Black men is jealous of the black woman, and we are given the same education to our people that we say we are against. I'm not knocking anybody. That's why I said I'd point the finger at me. And I had friends made me sit down and look at me, and I didn't defend it. They even recorded me and let me hear it. So I had to correct myself. So if we are friends, listen to what I'm saying. Don't be like, damn, he just being hard. No, listen to some of the things that I'm saying, because I had some people that had to straighten me out, because Bawana is right. I thought everybody should have known everything I knew. But then my friends taught me everybody wouldn't raise like you. Everybody, mama and daddy, wouldn't in the field like you. Everybody wasn't doing stuff where white folks coming and trying to kill them and you had shootout. Everybody don't come for that. Everybody didn't come from that. And that is something I had to realize. But I had some friends, some real good friends, who sat me down and showed me and made me understand. And I had some real good friends who sat me down and showed me about Christians. Then when I started dealing with these guns more and more and more and more and more, and dealing with people more and more and more and more of our people, I realized it's more Christians that's ready here than non-Christians. And all I'm doing is, as a friend, is saying, go back and listen to some of the stuff that we say about black people and ask yourself, what's the difference in the education? I'm not saying you can't ever say nothing about black people, but what I'm saying is some of the negative stuff should be kept to ourselves, just among us, and then we fix it. Because we start saying it publicly, we start to sound like the people that we say is our enemy, which I say, if you ain't black, you're an enemy. It's not just white folks, man. If you ain't black, you white. They're all the same to me. So they're all my enemy. I'm not just focusing on one group of people that's in my way. They're all in our way. Now I give the mic.
All right. So I'm not gonna stay long. I know we've got to move on to the next topic. So I mean, yeah, back to my point about the need for political and ideological education, because many black people do sound like white people when they talk about other black people. And that is because anti-blackness is so pervasive in this society. I mean, you get a strong helping of anti-blackness as a baby, as children in the womb. I mean, they've done so many studies about how anti-blackness can even affect fetuses when they're in the mother's womb. We all know the high, the high rate of death for Black women who are pregnant. So even at our most vulnerable, we're still being subjected to racism. So to your point, Bakari, many of us do sound like that because we're all in this system. I don't think that now. I don't think that whenever you criticize a Black organization or a Black um, institution or whatnot, that is coming from a place of negativity. I think we do need to continuously critique the systems that are supposed to benefit Black people. And if these systems do not benefit us as a group, then we need to change those systems. That could be an HBCU, that could be a Black-owned business, that could be anything. Nothing is above critique, but it has to be done principle, and it has to be done with the desire to make it better and not just criticize it just because it's something that's Black. But yeah, I agree with you in that many of us do sound the same way. Many of us do believe we're not shit. I talked to somebody at work the other day, and he was talking about the reason Black countries are poor because Jacob and Esau, and we're cursed by God. I'm like, you have to really swallow a lot of nonsense to believe that African people are somehow cursed. We are not. But again, when you're coming from the indoctrination, the media, the school system, that literally is trying to teach you that Black people, that we benefited from slavery. And to the point, it was the person who helped Governor DeSantis come up with this new educational program was a Black woman who had the nerve to say that she thanked God for slavery. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And it just kind of underscores the point I'm making, that we need to have, we're going to have to reprogram our people. And it's going to be a long, hard process, but it has to be done because otherwise we're not going to survive.
I want to say something to Brother Bakari, and Brother Bakari know this because I tell him this already. If you approach Detroit Red and tell Detroit Red that the Black woman is God, he gonna talk to you crazy. He would have talked to you crazy. But it's only through the process of who Detroit Red start walking amongst that he changed his position from Detroit Red to Malcolm X. Now, I'm not saying that it's our duty and job to do that. But I'm saying that if we say that we are better informed, properly informed, right? It takes time for you to develop from a hustler to a man to status of God. It takes time and it takes development. Now, and influence too. Now, if our approach is a particular way, then Detroit Red would have never become Detroit Red, because the people who was influencing him would have said, man, listen, man, I don't have time for that, man. This man crazy. I don't want to talk to him, blah, 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 whatever. But with some of our people, I believe that grace should be given, because some of us stand at a particular point where we have some understanding about the world and understanding about our people and where they are. It's not to say that they can't get there. It's just say with time, with influence, with proper instruction and better information, they will have a better decision in their mind to reason out, to say, well, yeah, let me move away from that position and move into this position. And I'm saying that with some of our people, not all, because some of our people you can't rectify what's going on there, like Candace Owens. Some of our people are completely lost, forget about them. But some of our people, through their actions in continuously coming to listen, coming to hear, they are telling you, yeah, we don't believe we shit, but I still finding myself here on a Saturday night. They do it indeed. So I follow what the man do, not necessarily what he's saying, because it's something that is getting here, that he's hearing, that is instructing him in a way that he want to hear more of. And the more he hear, the more he gonna be tempted to change his position from one point, from the Detroit Red point to the Malcolm X point. And I'm saying that with some of our brothers, not all, some of our brothers, you should give us latitude and grace. And even us here on this panel have been poisoned. We live in the Western world. So that poison can get in. You know what I mean? You can't, like I said the last week, you can't live in a burning house without smelling like smoke. So some of us have been impacted and affected as well. We come here together, we exchange positive ideas until we are mentally able to heal and resolve ourselves to a specific point. And who want to come along with that experience, they'll benefit from that experience. It's no way someone could be around a person like a Brother Bakari and still hold a position after years and years and years and niggas ain't shit. You know why? Because that means Brother Bakari is a failure. So I see that with some of our brothers and sisters, we should have latitude and grace until we reach to where we need to be. We'll get there because some of us have not been properly instructed on a foundational level. On a foundational level, what you get, everybody can get. You know what I mean? So, like I say, man, you have to give some of the brothers grace. And I understand it's frustrating and it's angering and it's pissy off. But who else you gonna give grace to? Grace to if it ain't your brother or your sister. But I'll leave it.
I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna be quiet, right? So after that, I understand. I hear what you're saying, and I can say I understand what you're saying, right? Because I do. But I can also say this: I understand. As I was growing up, I saw black people that put in this work, and as the older I get, the more I understand why they got tired and why they said, "I'm not doing it no more." I really understand because we said all that, and I agree with what you said. But my question still stands: why is positivity correctly? Calling the black woman queen is just something positive. God is positive. Calling the black man king is something positive. Calling the black man God is just something positive. Why is that constantly corrected by black people, but nobody correct when somebody calls you the N-word, or nobody correct all the negativity that is said by black people? So trust me, I do things right now, right? I do things right now that I would never say on YouTube. You know why? Because I don't want to hear black people bullshit. Because don't give me cars say it's okay to critique. If you're going to critique, are you helping? So it's that certain things I won't say. And black people do need to understand that just because somebody is black, or just because an organization is black, don't mean they want to hear your bullshit if you ain't coming to help them. That's why I use Antonio Tarver, professional boxer, Hall of Famer, the first guy that beat Roy Jones Jr. He know boxing. If you want to know probably who gonna win a fight, listen to Antonio Tarver's take, and listen to him break it down. And then listen to him beg for a trainer to let him come and help with the fighter. But Malik Scott, who's the trainer now of Deontay Wilder, and he have several fighters, $1 million trainer. What he said about Antonio Tarver was, you're not, as much as he respect Antonio Tarver, we don't see him as trustworthy, because after every fight, he says something negative about the trainer and he says something negative about the fighter. And instead of Tarver listening and understanding and having an opportunity to be making millions of dollars training, what he do is he continued to take subtle shots and subtle jabs at these black fighters who he say he pulling for, and at these black trainers. But then after he talked negative about them, let me come and train you. And the answer, and Malik Scott said the exact same thing that I said. Yes, we want to deal with them, but don't nobody want to hear that bullshit publicly all the time. If you have a problem with something that we are doing, come and talk to us and show us. And we gonna have to get to that point. Or once again, we will find men who has put in work, who will get a certain age and say, you know what? I'm tired. Black people don't want to listen. They want to correct what is good and they give the negative a pass by saying they're not on your level. When I say I'm a defender of black people, I'm gonna correct when someone come insulting black people, especially a black woman. That's my job, and I am gonna continue to do that. I'm not telling nobody else what to do, but I will say this, because social media is something else. Show me a movement that has gotten started from social media when all we are doing is talking negative about one another. I'm just saying, show me something where we can get going where all we're doing is talking negative about one another. You know why? Somebody would give to the fake museum because all they do is talk negative about other black people together. But show me a movement where black people can really build something and do something together, when the only thing that is always highlighted about anything black is negative. And I ain't talking about coming from nobody else. I'm talking about coming from black people. So I'm not giving them a pass all of the time. That negativity needs to be corrected as well. But that's why I only watch a few channels on YouTube now. YouTube, so black social media is worse than TV. That's just my opinion. I really don't. I watch about 3-4 channels. I watch more comedy on YouTube. Then I watch of people talking about they giving some knowledge, because it's horrible. It's irritating and shit. Me personally, who haven't nearly done as much as the people who I know and admire, but I have done things in my life. Even me, I've gotten tired. And that's why I say there are certain things that I do now, and what I'm a part of, I will never bring it to social media, because don't nobody want to hear the negative shit that black people have to say. Black people don't want to hear that negative shit that black people have to say about them all of the time.
We gotta move on to the next topic. I will say this though. I think black people need to stop doing negative shit too, and then you won't have to hear the criticisms, right? So I think it goes both ways. Me for one, I'm going to call a spade personally. I'm going to call a spade a spade. You doing fuckery? I'm going to tell you you're doing fuckery, and that doesn't mean we cannot then have the discussion of how to fix the fuckery or the ramifications of it. So that I just want to add, that's my last word on that prompt. But I don't think criticism is a bad thing. And if black people are tired of hearing negative shit, then stop doing dumb shit, right? You're in a club.
Why can't we do that? Why? But okay, watch this, right? I'm gonna just ask this question. Because see, you talking about the people that doing negative shit. I had a whole 3-month debate. Tell me the negative stuff you know HBCUs do.
No, Bakari, I don't have no problems with HSBC.
No, I know you don't.
So all this kind of stuff, that's something that you and others in the chat have gone back and forth with. I don't have no problems with it.
And that's the point I'm talking about, Koku. Even if they don't know nothing, they search for something negative to put out. That's what I ain't talking about.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like Shoot the Breeze, for example. Sometimes there's going to be some topics that have a story attached, and they're not going to be the most flattering thing that's happening in black society. We're supposed to talk about that. We're supposed to chastise it when it's error. When there's an error, we're supposed to point out error. I'm not going to sit back and pretend that everything is all sweet and it's milk and honey when there's some bullshit going on. Now, the stuff with the the stuff with the HBCUs, that's not my struggle. I support HBCUs. I support what you do for that. I don't have anything negative to say, and I know you weren't talking about me personally. Neither am I talking about you personally, but what I'm saying is criticisms are not a bad thing. Now, we have to be respectful in how we do some of our criticisms, that's for sure. But criticisms are not inherently something bad. I want to point out, Jose joined us in the chat, saying, what up, fam? Marcus Gaviz Dewey is here tonight. She says, good night, excellent discussion earlier. She said, "Good night, brethren." So I appreciate that. For those of you who joined us tonight. By the way, hit the like button for me. I notice we have more listeners in the here than likes. Hit the like button. That helps the channel, as you know. I gotta move on to the next topic.